Well, hey guys, and welcome to another video. It's the Red Shadow here, and yeah, it's kind of, once again, it's been a little bit since the last time I put up a video, but I haven't stopped thinking about ideas that I wanted to talk about, and this was something that came up a couple weeks ago when I was watching a countdown video on a YouTube channel called WatchMojo.com, which is loaded with really cool top 10s. That's like all it ever is, top 10 videos. And they did this one, and I don't remember for sure whether this was about the best twists or the worst twists in movies. But I do remember that they covered, obviously they were going to have to cover movies from M. Night Shyamalan. And it just got me thinking, much the way I did a vlog months ago about the hate that Hayden Christensen gets for his role in the Star Wars prequels and how I really feel like it's unfair to him. I also feel like M. Night Shyamalan gets a lot of hate, and there's reasons for it. I'm not saying that there isn't a reason for some people to be disappointed, at least with some of his movies. That's just because whether he wanted to or not, he kind of set himself up to fail by coming up with such interesting plot twists and endings to his movies that everybody expected it. And so when the movie stopped having really good, satisfying ones in most people's eyes, everybody just started to take the piss out of the guy, basically. Now, this for me is not me joining in with all of that M. Night Shyamalan hate. I've actually enjoyed pretty much all of his movies that I have seen. But I wanted to rank the movies of M. Night Shyamalan's that I have watched in order from my favorite to least favorite. Just know that when I get to the last movie, it's not like, oh my god, this movie sucks. It's just, it's not on par with the movies that came before it. So anyway, I guess without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. And I wanted to reiterate that this is my favorites, my picks, my opinions. And I'm starting with my favorite movie simply because if I were to build up to what I consider to be his best movie, it would be predictable. Because I think we can all pretty much widely agree what M. Night Shyamalan's best movie ever was. And like I said, that's my first pick. It's my favorite M. Night Shyamalan movie. That's The Sixth Sense, and I'm getting a little bit of computer screen glare there, but there it is. This is a Blu-ray copy. This is a movie that I absolutely loved, and I did own it on VHS, but I never did have it on DVD. And the longer that I searched for this movie, the further we got into the HD era, and I just eventually decided that I was going to pick up the Blu-ray. This is a version that has bonus features because I'm all about that kind of stuff. But anyway, The Sixth Sense. I mean, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know all about this movie, starring Bruce Willis, Haley Joel Osment. The movie about the what is he? He's a child psychologist, Bruce Willis's character, who gets shot by this former patient of his at the beginning of the movie, and then you come back after he's recovered or whatever, and to continue to follow his life as he encounters this kid here who claims to be able to see dead people, to be able to see ghosts and spirits of people who have died. And God, it's been too long since I've seen this, so I know I'm glossing over stuff in it, but it deals mostly with their interaction, and then of course the shocking twist ending that kind of started it all for M. Night Shyamalan. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen this movie, but at the end he discovers that he actually died when that guy shot him, and so he, who was able to see dead people, was seeing him as a ghost, not as an actual living being, which was pretty mind-bending back in the day. But there were a lot of clues laid out in the movie. It was just an engrossing flick, and I have a story to tell about this. This movie, not only is it really, really good, and I really enjoyed it, but it has memories for me here in Joplin, where I live, because this came out in 1999, and it had at least, this is before I had moved to Missouri from Montana. I'd seen the previews for it. I was excited. I wanted to see it. I wanted to check this out. This wasn't M. Night Shyamalan's first movie. He had like 2 or 3 before this. But one was a movie released in India that dealt with, I can't remember off the top of my head now, but it was just, when I read it, it almost sounded like a documentary style movie. Then he did some sort of a like comedy movie before Sixth Sense came along. But then he did this, and it was just like, wow. So anyway, I wanted to see it really badly. When I lived in Montana, me and my closest friends, like 3 or 4, my best friends and I would always go to the movies, almost every weekend it seemed like. And this one was definitely on my radar. I think a few of the other people that my friends up there were interested in it. And then things kind of happened for me. Things went to shit, and I ended up moving down here in the summer of '99. I don't even think I had gotten a job yet. I'd been sitting around at my dad and grandma's house, and I was kind of needed to get out, needed to do something, and I think it was my dad who mentioned, the idea of maybe going to the movies. Hey, you want to go see a movie or something? So I decided to do so. Sixth Sense was playing. So I went down to the movie theater, and not really knowing my way around this town quite yet at that time, I got there a little bit late. I didn't miss any of the movie. I came in during the previews, which for me, I hate. I may as well have missed some of the movie. Previews are a big part of the experience for me. So I missed out on some of the previews, and due to the fact that this movie was still fresh and new, and I got there late, the theater behind me was packed. I ended up sitting all the way down at the bottom, where you have to sit in the seats and look at the screen like this, which is not comfortable at all. I like to sit our theater has seating where there's sections on the left and right, that there's the stairs going up and down, and then there's a bigger section in the middle. I like to sit in that middle section, about 3 or 4 rows down from the top, in the middle if I can, or on the edge so it's easier to get in and out if I need to. But that's just perfect. Sit too far on the left or right, and I don't like it. Sit all the way down at the front, and I don't know how many people who do like it. But the movie was just so good that I didn't really care that I was sitting down in the front. I just kind of hunkered down in my seat and watched that movie and was just blown away. It's just such a good movie. A lot of people will say, yes, this deserves the accolades that it got. I believe it was nominated for Best Picture the year that came out. Maybe other awards. M. Night Shyamalan had cemented himself as a new, hot and up-and-coming director, writer, producer, and whatnot. And with that twist ending, he kind of started a little bit of a trend. I mean, there's been twist endings for years in movies, but he just did it in such an amazing way that a lot of people wanted to copy that. And unfortunately, in my opinion, maybe he wanted to copy that or emulate it to a certain extent with a lot of the movies that came afterwards. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get to the next movie here. As I look at my stack of movies, I think to myself, these could really go in almost any order from what I have here, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with the when I set these movies aside about a week ago, this was my list that I had at the time, so that's what I'm going to go with. So my number 2 M. Night Shyamalan movie would be Signs. Now, Signs was not the next movie that was out from M. Night Shyamalan. I do believe that Unbreakable came next. But Signs, to me, is my second favorite all-time M. Night Shyamalan movie. Signs is actually where Sixth Sense had to do with like ghosts and spirits and whatnot. Signs dealt with aliens. Aliens had come to the planet, and this family, Mel Gibson, his kids. This is the kids are played. It doesn't say. Well, that's too bad because they look familiar. It looks like Abigail Breslin, and it looks like one of the Culkins. So, we'll go with that. And then Joaquin Phoenix played his brother. They live in Pennsylvania, and they wake up one morning to find a 500-foot crop circle in their backyard. And basically, aliens are coming to the planet, and it's not like Independence Day where gigantic spaceships come in and start blowing everything up. But aliens are here, and they start to be sighted, they start to be seen, including in and around their farm, which supplied for a few really cool, like, jump scares and some real tense and scary moments. But that was what was so good about it. A good cast, they had some humor spliced in there, but it was creepy, it was scary, it was aliens done kind of in a horror movie type way, kind of, sort of. I guess you'd kind of have to see it the way I did to understand what I mean. And I just thought it was really well done. Now, this movie gets a lot of flack, and it pisses me off. It gets a lot of flack for the twist of this movie, which is not the aliens, because it's established early on that they're here. The twist was that water was their Achilles heel. That water, which covers like 90% of our planet, was what would kill them. It was what would harm them. It was what would stop them. And people were just like, that's so stupid. That's so illogical to say that these aliens that could travel across the galaxy would come to our planet that's mostly covered in water, knowing that that was what would kill them and what would harm them, but they came here anyway. Well, okay, the first thing that comes to my mind is, just because they could travel across the galaxies and the universe and get here, that doesn't mean that they know that water would kill them. It doesn't mean that they know that that was what was even on this planet. These are aliens. Any kind of mythology or whatever could be written for them. It doesn't mean that they would know that there was water here, and they would just stroll down the road and be like, "Oh, what's that? It's raining. I'm gonna, disintegrate because of this rain. Well, let's just keep right on going along." It's so stupid to just assume that was how it was written. Oh, they know that water would kill them, but they came here anyway. And second of all, and even worse, in my opinion, is if it's cool to rip on signs for that fallacy, that the water thing, and they should have known better, and why did they do it, and that makes it so stupid. Why are we ripping on the original War of the Worlds, a movie that admittedly signs probably rips a little bit off of themselves, but in the original War of the Worlds, these aliens came to our planet and they started destroying it, and they started to try to take over, and their UFOs land in front of some of the last people left in some city somewhere. And the aliens, the door opens on the craft, and it's like an arm or something comes out, and they die right there due to exposure from oxygen, something that our entire planet is coated in. But nobody said anything about that, not back then that I know of, and not today. It's like they conveniently forget all about that in this. And I don't remember anybody ripping this for ripping off War of the Worlds. They were just like, oh, water, that doesn't make any sense. We're covered in water. They would know that. They're smart enough to know that. But let's give a pass to War of the Worlds, where oxygen was what killed them. In my opinion, it was a really good movie. It was very tense. It had the jump scares, the just creepy factor of it all. It had humor. It had a great cast. It's, like I said, my second favorite movie from M. Night Shyamalan. I dug it really, really, really well. Alright, so now I'm going to jump on to the third movie. And other than the one that comes after this one, I have a feeling that most people are going to scoff at these couple of movies. But my third favorite overall M. Night Shyamalan movie would be The Village. I remember when the previews were coming out for this, and it was just so creepy. It was so off-putting, in my opinion. These people living in a forest somewhere, and it seems completely and totally like, this is 1700s or 1800s or something like that. And there's something scary out in the woods, something that these people are all afraid of. And I don't know, it was just done in such a really interesting way. I can't really describe it, how it made me feel, but I was very intrigued by this movie and wanted to see it. I wanted to rush out to the theater when it came out, and I did. And I really, really enjoyed it. And most people did not like the movie because of its twist. So, spoiler alert, of course, let's talk about the twist. In this movie, as I said before, it's depicted in such a way that you assume that these are people who live in like the 17 or 1800s or early 1900s or something like that, at a time when, there's no technology, there's no computers, there's no electricity, there's barely any of the amenities that we have come to know and take for granted in today's world. But you come to find out that actually these people are just living in some sort of a nature reserve that's off limits to the public, that's off limits to even things like airplanes and all of that. And that these small group of people came here at a certain time in like the 70s or the 80s to kind of establish their own little secret society and rewind time and live in a world free of all of that, free of traffic and pollution and internet. Well, of course, at the time that this movie came out, I don't think that the internet was quite the thing that it is today, but it was still out there. Cell phones, all that kind of nonsense. They wanted to get away from it. They didn't want anything to do with it. So that's what they did. And they went into this thing, and they had kids, and the people who established the society knew what was going on and had taken a vow or an oath not to ever reveal what the true nature of the outside world was. And all of the kids and all of the people who were there, well, especially the kids who would be curious and would want to know about what was going on out in the world, they thought that was their life. And they even had somebody who dressed up as some sort of crazy creature and ran around in the woods to, just the boogeyman. It was created to keep them in line and to keep the curious children from straying too far away from the village. But then something happened. It's been a while since I've seen this. Somebody gets hurt. Somebody needs something. And the only way that they can get this for them is to send somebody out beyond the woods. And they choose, okay, it's convenient, yes, that this one girl who lives in the village is blind. They choose to send her out there because she kind of knows her way, and she can get to where they instruct her to go to, and she can't see what she's going to be seeing or what she would see if she had her sight. She's not going to see pickup trucks and paved roads and electricity and all that kind of stuff. She's not going to see it. She's been instructed to go to a certain place, ask for a certain thing, and then be sent back on her way. I thought it was amazing when she came out of there and all of a sudden it was revealed that this was modern time, not 1700s or 1800s. I was like, that's really, really cool. I can say with all honesty, I hadn't seen that coming. I forgot to mention earlier with The Sixth Sense, but I'm almost positive that when I was watching The Sixth Sense, I had kind of picked up on the fact that Bruce Willis's character was dead. I'm not one of those, yeah, I called it, woohoo. I just feel like I knew that was what was happening. It didn't take anything away from the movie. But when I saw The Village, I really didn't see this part coming. And that's why it's my third favorite M. Night Shyamalan movie, because I thought it was clever and it was well done and it had an interesting story. Sue me if you don't agree, but I really, really, really enjoyed that movie. Alright, so the next movie that I'm going to pick, the number 4th favorite overall movie of M. Night Shyamalan, at least of the ones that I've watched, is one that I think a lot of people would probably hold higher than 4th. And like I said, this doesn't mean that it's bad. I just like these other ones a little bit better. But the next one up here would be Unbreakable. And this was the first movie to start a trend with M. Night Shyamalan. I haven't really been mentioning it or tracking it, so to speak. But a lot of people who were in one M. Night Shyamalan movie, a lot of people ended up coming back and doing another one. This movie here stars Bruce Willis. who was the star of The Sixth Sense. He came back to do this movie. And I will at least try to mention a few of the other people who have done that in the next couple of movies. But anyway, in this movie, Bruce Willis is he was he had a position at like a sports stadium or something like that. I don't know if he was a security guard, an equipment manager, or something like that for some sports team, or he just worked there. But anyway, he survives this train crash. I just read it on here and then I said plane. He's a sole survivor, and he emerges without a single scratch on him. And he meets a mysterious stranger played by Samuel L. Jackson. And Samuel L. Jackson is this guy who's like in a wheelchair. I think he has like that brittle bone syndrome where if he moves too fast in a specific kind of way, his bones and limbs can just snap. He's basically confined to a wheelchair or walks with canes and whatnot. And he encounters this guy. And Samuel L. Jackson, I don't know. I think the best way to explain this is to just kind of to spoil the movie and the premise of it. Basically, what this movie was doing was it was a superhero movie. It was postulating that Bruce Willis's character was invincible. He was invulnerable to death and harm. And Samuel L. Jackson's character was sort of a weaker physical, like a weaker bodied character, but a superior intellectual. And he had this, I guess you would say, like a complex or whatever, that he was sort of like a bad guy. He had all the tropes of a bad guy character, and he was always seeking to find that superhero who would kind of be his nemesis. And he had sought out people who had survived things or been through things and come out of it on the other end. And he was always trying to find that yin to his yang, or the other side of his coin. And he got to the point where he even started to create situations where such a person might come out of it, such as a train crash that produced Bruce Willis' character. And the movie spends a lot of time exploring the dynamic between these two. And like I said, it's sort of like the way the TV show Heroes was a superhero thing that wasn't all flashy tights and pew 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 and all that kind of stuff, and especially not referencing Marvel or DC or other comic book characters, but it was more like what happened if everyday people became superheroes and they looked like normal people. Unbreakable went even further with that idea. These were just two normal guys by appearance with extraordinary things happening to them. And it was really, really, really good. And I think it's probably his most underrated movie of all the ones that he's done. So, Unbreakable is really awesome. I would check it out. I have not had a chance to check out this. This is the Vista series. Really cool looking case and stuff. And lots of special features on it. Something I need to check out at some point. All right, let's move on to number 5. And by the way, I should point out, just because this video is probably already kind of long, but there's 6 total movies of M. Night Shyamalan's that I've watched that I'm going to cover here. So we're getting on to the last 2. Now, number 5, this might surprise some people, or it might not, but my number 5 overall favorite M. Night Shyamalan movie is Lady in the Water. This is my DVD that's got the kind of cool lenticular style cover. And as you can see on here, this lady right here is Bryce Dallas Howard. And Bryce Dallas Howard was the blind lady who went out of the village to seek out medical help for the person in their village that was requiring it. She was another example of somebody who did a couple different movies. She did The Village, come back and did Lady in the Water. Paul Giamatti is the main star of this. Now, this movie is hard to describe, other than to say that this is a story. It even says on here, classic bedtime story for a new generation. Now, I found nothing about this to resemble a bedtime story. This was just sort of a weird kind of idea that M. Night Shyamalan had, and he told it in the form of a story to his kids when they were growing up. And then down the road, he decided to make a movie based on this idea that he created. So, I mean, that's cool with me. I like this movie. It's just very different. It's all over the place. It's kind of confusing at times, but it has an interesting cast of characters. All these people that live at like this little apartment complex. As it says on here, Paul Giamatti plays an apartment manager who finds an otherworld water nymph named Story, played by Howard, in the pool, and sets out to help her return to her home, the Blue World. It's about to get very dangerous, she warns, and very fascinating because there's monsters that come after her, and including, I don't know if you can really make it out here. I guess you probably can, but it's like a wolf here. This wolf totally reminds me of the wolf from Neverending Story, the being who represented the nothing. But the cast of characters at this apartment complex were kind of the highlight, especially because you can't see it anywhere on here. But there was this guy who worked out one side of his body and had big muscles, biceps, triceps, thighs, like everything on one side of his body, and then didn't do anything with the other side of his body. As I don't remember, it was like an experiment or just for the hell of it. And it made for a very interesting visual in the movie for them to have to portray this guy as completely buffed up on one side and then normal on the other. Like I said, it doesn't measure up to the heavy hitters before it, but it was still a very good movie, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I may be in the minority there, but I really liked that movie. Just like I like the last movie, number 6. Most people have probably figured out what this is by now. I think this is the one that most people see as sort of like the nail in M. Night Shyamalan's coffin. He didn't put out a lot of movies directly right after this one came out. But anyway, it's The Happening. This is a movie that I went and saw in the theaters. This is a movie that I enjoyed. It's got Mark Wahlberg. It's got, let's see, Mark Wahlberg. I know who's in it, but I just don't want to. Zoe Deschanel, John Leguizamo, who, no, he wasn't in this. This is somebody on the back of this cover kind of looked like him. But Paul Leguizamo, Mark Wahlberg, Zoe Deschanel. Any other names on here that are worth mentioning? No, not really. Okay, so in this movie, it calls us in here a heart-pounding apocalyptic thriller. It's sort of like, well, it is sort of like that, like a post-apocalyptic type thing. But it was the concept, the idea of what was killing mankind and leaving the survivors stranded in this desolate world. That was what was the letdown in this movie. It was twist, plot spoilers. The twist in this movie was that it was the plants of our world, the grass and the trees and the flowers, rose up to kill us because of our evil ways. Plants and plant life or whatever were expelling something into the air that was causing people's not worst fears, but it was causing them to kill themselves. It was causing them to just sort of like give up on life, jump off a building, hang yourself, shoot yourself, walk in front of a moving vehicle. And that was a stretch. It was disappointing to see M. Night Shyamalan come up with such a weak twist to it. But in my opinion, that was the worst part of it, was just the silly twist. The movie itself was good. There were some scares. It was up there, and at least it was trying to do something different. It wasn't zombies. It wasn't like a virus outbreak. It wasn't nuclear war. It was just, it could have / should have been any of those things. It would have been better as a retread than as something this silly of an idea. But like I said, I don't hate this movie. I own this movie. I will watch this movie again. I have no problem with any of that. And I don't hate M. Night Shyamalan, and I don't write him off and think that he's, well, like washed up. Even though I'm going to try to mention some of his projects since then, movies that I have not watched. But this was the end of an era, basically. These 6 movies are kind of like the body of M. Night Shyamalan's work, the best that he's had to offer, and so far. Now, I think the first movie that he did after The Happening was The Last Airbender, which was a live-action movie based on the Avatar Last Airbender Nickelodeon cartoon show. I refuse to call it an anime because it was made here in the U.S. and it attempts its best to rip off anime movies, but I don't consider it to be true anime. It was just a Nickelodeon cartoon. A cartoon that admittedly M. Night Shyamalan enjoyed. I assume his kids probably enjoyed it. And when a movie opportunity came up, I guess either he wanted to do it or it was offered to him. Like I said, I've never seen it. I don't really care to see it, but it's been reviewed rather poorly as being not very faithful to the source material, not being a good representation of it. Like for example, the main character Avatar in the show is Asian, and they get some white kid, some Caucasian kid to play the role, and it would just seem like most people say it was a massive letdown. I'll never know because I'm never going to watch the cartoon it's based off of, and I'm never going to watch this movie, at least not of my own voluntary accord. Now, the other movie that I know of that he's done, and I guess I'm going to go ahead and I wasn't going to refer to Wikipedia in this, but I think I'm going to. I think I almost have to. But the other movie that I know of for sure that he has been a major part of is After Earth. Yeah, see, he did Happening in 2008, Last Airbender in 2010. He did a movie called Devil, but he was only executive producer and writer. He wasn't the director of that movie. I saw that movie, and it was okay. It could have been a lot better, but then 3 years later, he did a movie called After Earth, and this one was a movie where he actually was the director, producer, and writer for it. Now, I know it's gotten some bad reviews. I have not seen it, but I own it. I own the movie, and it's on my shelf over there on my Blu-rays because it was a Will Smith sci-fi movie and helmed by M. Night Shyamalan, and I was willing to give it a try. The other 2 things that he's done since then is a TV show called Wayward Pines that he's director and producer for, and then he has a movie coming along called The Visit, which is another director, producer, writer thing. It looks interesting, but it also looks like it's traveling down the same road as everything he's done before. So I'm skeptical. I don't know that it's going to be any good if he's trying to do another twist movie. But we'll see. We'll reserve judgment. So I am going to mention really quick, because they have this on here, and I think that it'd be kind of cool to point it out. But Bruce Willis did The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable in back-to-back years. Bryce Dallas Howard did The Village and Lady in the Water in 2004 and 2006. I forgot, Joaquin Phoenix was also in The Village. So after doing Signs, he then came back and did The Village. He was the other main name who did it. They showed 2 other actors, a Cherry Jones, who was both in Signs and The Village, and Frank Collison, who was in The Village and The Happening. But it's kind of cool that there's been a couple of that. They're saying that Bruce Willis is in for something called Labor of Love. But when I click on that, it just takes me right back to M. Night Shyamalan's channel, his page on Wikipedia. So I don't know what that is. Maybe that movie's not happening, or maybe it hasn't went into full production yet, or something like that. But anyway, so yeah, that's that. Here's a real quick talk about The Visit. Oh, that's right. I remember that. Things appear normal till two children discover that Grandma and Grandpa are involved in something deeply disturbing after being left to stay at their grandparents' house while their mother is on vacation. They're warned not to come out of their room past 9:30 at night, but when they do, they realize that there's something terribly wrong with their grandparents. After pleading online to their mom for rescue, they realize that they're on their own against seemingly evil elders. Yeah, when I read it back, it sounds a little cheesy, but we'll see. It's supposed to come out in September of this year. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, I really enjoy M. Night Shyamalan's work. I would really like to see him kind of come back to prominence, but at the same time, I would like to see him take a chance on something that doesn't have to have a twist ending to it. Just do something good that's somewhat benign, you know, just you're feeding into the what do you call it? Damn it. The typecasting. That's what I'm trying to say. He's feeding into the typecasting of being a guy who can only do a one-trick pony of like a twist ending in a movie. Although I have to admit that the Wayward Pines TV show probably leads itself to a little bit less twist ending and just more overall creepiness. It looks very interesting. It'll be something I'll wait to either to check out when it comes out for sale, or maybe I'll stream it. I'll give myself over to the streaming world. Well, anyway, I guess that's it. I'm starting to ramble. I didn't want this to go super long, but I just wanted to rank M. Night Shyamalan's movies, the ones that I have seen, in my order of most favorite to least favorite, and give my thoughts on them all. So that's it. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. I've got another video or two to put up here in the next few days, so there'll be something to watch. Yeehaw. All right, thanks, guys.